King Noble Black Supremacy. With this particular video, I want to talk about how King Noble Black Supremacy, or KNBS, is against the cult mind. Now, what do I mean by that? I didn't say against a cult, this or that cult, because this or that cult is irrelevant when it comes to the cult mind. We can say the cult mindset or the cult mentality. A lot of people claim to be against this or that cult, and you can find that all over the internet. There's some individual that's vigilantly against this cult, what they consider to be a cult. But if you start researching those people and looking into them, you see they themselves have the cult mind. And they basically created an anti-cult cult. They've created a cult that's against this or that cult. So while they may be against this or that cult, they still have the cult mind. What is the cult mind? The cult mind it's a phenomenon. It's a algorithm. The cult mind is something that continues to occur wherever people come together. Let's call it the cult syndrome. That might be a better word. We'll call it the acquired conscious immune cult syndrome. Whenever you get people together, the cult syndrome can happen. It's a communicable disease. It's a social, psychological disease. People get together and feel that everybody should agree on something, or everybody should arrive at a particular definitive truth in the same way, and they receive social pressure to be at that particular point right now, no matter what it is. This is what I'm calling the cult syndrome. Everybody has to agree, and there has to be some definitive truth that everyone accepts. Just the fact that we approach life as such a thing has to exist, we are operating out of the cult mind. That's a mind that doesn't give individuals time to think for themselves, and don't even believe really that human beings could think for themselves, which is why there are certain definitive truths that have to be forced on the people, or there's a lack of patience and that people don't arrive at what you consider to be the truth as fast as you do. There's a lack of patience in that, because we all should see the truth as obvious, and we all should be at the same exact place in our development, in our consciousness, and in our perception. That is the cult mind. That there's some obvious truth of which we all should definitely agree on right now. That is the cult mind. And whether let's skip the process of you arriving at that truth or coming into that understanding on your own. We just want you to accept it right now. Accept that this is right. Or accept that this is wrong just because. Accept that this is facts, or this is not facts, or that this is truth, or this is not truth just because. And that we all should be at that point now. And we should put pressure on others to accept these facts or these truths, and ostracize others and reject others that do not accept these truths. And if not these truths accept truth itself in a manner that appeals to us as to what we consider is reasonable or obvious or necessary. This is what I'm calling the cult mind. The cult mind does not allow individual freedom or independent thought, or it doesn't respect the individual's process of thinking to come to whatever conclusion that is necessary for their development or for their understanding or for their expression of who they are as an individual. The cult mind happens in groups. It doesn't have to happen in a group, but it typically does. Are there groups without the cult mind? Yes, there are. These individuals have actually thought and meditated and deciphered and deliberated, and they just find themselves among those who have a like mind. But when you find that group, you don't find a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, a lot of definitive norms. You don't find that. You just find people who gather and who come because they have like minds, like energy, like frequency, like vibration. And their life journey has led them to a very similar place where they have acknowledged some things and they're together in those acknowledgments. But then you have the cult mind that forces everyone to think and believe in a certain manner. Now. You have to do it now. You have to accept this now. You have to live this way now. I understand this to be true, and so do you. You definitely have to understand this now. There's no room for critical analysis, questioning, no room for thought, no room to conceptualize. This is it. KNBS is against the cult mind. The cult mind is not just in organizations that the masses of asses in this country don't agree with. They say, oh, the Mormons is a cult. The Church of Satan is a cult. The New Age thinkers is a cult. The Nubians is a cult. The Moors is a cult. This or that organization is a cult. According to the masses of asses in this country. That's not what I mean. Because this country itself has a lot of cult-like activity going on. They force you to go along with what they have deemed to be significant, real, necessary, justice. They have defined society for you. They're very cult-like in what they expect you to understand, to assimilate to, and to accept as true, or the norm, or the standard, or the way of being. So society has a cult mind in it as well. And some people, in reaction to the cult mind of society, they have went up and just created their own cults. They won't go against the cult mind itself. They just have an anti-cult cult. And now the big cult called America, the big cult called this country, the big cult called society today, looks at those smaller cults or those smaller groups of people with a different mindset as a cult. And you really have cult versus cult, big cult versus little cult. But the cult mind is still ruling. It's a new entity with new rules and new regulations and new ways to force and impose its way on individuals, to trample over individuals, to trample out the spirit of the individual, to blanket the individual, to put a veil of ignorance over the individual, under the auspices of it being a better society, a better system, things going better, things working better, things being more beneficial. So they've become micro cults. And then you got the macro cult. But they both have the cult mind in common. You're supposed to accept these things just because they said it, or just because the group agrees with it. And something is true based on what the group believes or what the group accepts determines how true it is. That's the cult mind. If you think that you have to find a group that agrees with you and that the agreement of the group means anything, you have a cult mind. That means you cannot think for yourself. You can only understand what is true based on how it is accepted by others, or perceived by others, or rationalized by others. And that the individual doesn't have a right to even live outside of what you consider to be true for a moment, even if such thing is necessary for them to develop and grow into what you understand to be true, that they don't even deserve a moment of their own to naturally or organically grow into an understanding of that truth, that what that society, the rules and regulations of society or a group, must be established and must be imposed on the individual, irregardless of their spiritual development, their uniqueness as a person, their individual expression, or their unique dynamic of their personal spiritual or psychological journey. That's a cult mind. When there must be a specific theme to a group, and that theme is more relevant than the humanity and the dignity of the individuals that are involved. It's a cult mind. Now, a lot of things that has passed is when it comes to diet. This is the only thing to eat. And the only thing that everybody should eat. And the only thing that everybody shouldn't eat. Cult mind. These lists of definitive shoulds and definitive shouldn'ts that everybody in the group agrees on. When it comes to sexuality, this is the cult mind. This is the type of sex everybody should have, and this is the type of sex that everybody shouldn't have. This is what everybody should do and everybody shouldn't do. A list of shoulds and shouldn't that is maintained by the group mind, that every individual who comes into it must definitively accept that. Forsake their own intellectual process. See, the cult mind doesn't respect the decision of the individuals. And they wondered why in the future, eventually, the individuals don't respect the decisions of the group or anybody in the group. Because how can you respect something if you're not given the time to grow into understanding it, to grow into conceptualizing what it is? And if you didn't approach it with that type of reverence, because you just wanted to quickly fasten yourself into the cult, then how could you ever really even understand it anyway? You didn't take the time because you jumped into the cult mind, or the cult mind was imposed upon you. Kingnobleblacksupremacy is against the cult mind. It's not about any group or group conclusion or group. It's just not about groupism. It's about the individual awakening and enlightening to the truth of Kingnobleblacksupremacy. It has nothing to do with no group. It has to do with the unique path of the individual as they continue to explore and discover and decipher and open their mind to what is out here and what is out there, and continue to weigh what they have been told and what they have experienced against greater knowledge, greater insight, greater wisdom. They're willing to submit themselves into a very thorough intellectual process to decipher what is relevant in the here and now. It's not about a group, because you can get out of a group, but you'll never get out of yourself. So that self that you are in has to expand, has to awaken, has to grow, has to change, has to transform. Everybody's looking for the cult mind. They get mad when they join cults, but they didn't know it was themselves looking for the cult mind. And when they disagree with the cult mind, they say, well, look, that's a cult. I don't agree with that. I'm against that group. I'm against that institution. But it was they themselves who had only been satisfied, only fell at home in the cult mind, because familiarity and similarity, and those that are like them and those that agree with them no matter whatever it is, made them feel more validated egotistically as an individual. So they wanted to be in a cult. The cult was perfect for them because they already came to it with the cult mind. That was their approach. Not to understand, conceptualize, perceive, or reverence, or developed, or broaden their scope, but just a cult mind, just a group of people to agree with me. They would sacrifice certain disagreements or certain differences that needed to be hashed out through rigorous intellectual development. They would sacrifice that just to be in a cult, just to be a part of any cult mind. And it's more about imposing truth, imposing idea, and imposing perspective, more than it is about awakening or enlightening. But see, in order to do that, all the consequences of being wrong has to be removed. The socially imposed consequences for being wrong has to be taken away, because the fear of consequences of being wrong forces people to prematurely accept inadequate truths. This is a fact. So see, that's where you get the cult mind. Now people are scared to think, or people have been so rejected for being treated, for being so different, that they go and join anything that's like them. Anything that's a little like them, and then they sacrifice how they're even different from that which is somewhat like them. They sacrifice all their differences just to be inside of the cult mind. And they become a part of the consciousness steamroller that just roll over other people's minds. So passionate and so emotional about programmed thoughts and ideas that they cannot even be objective. They cannot even look at ideas objectively. They cannot step outside of themselves to have consideration or compassion or understanding of someone who may have a different view, because they must be a part of the steamroll of the cult mind. I'm going in with this. King Noble Black Supremacy is anti the cult mind. We're not anti any particular cult, because if we did, then we would be a cult to say that it's someone or something that you should be completely against. There is no someone or something that you should be completely against, or you should be against any and everyone that is not like you. Because in that case, every individual is a cult in and of themselves, with the particular ideas and beliefs that they hold in their minds. So it's no way we could be against a cult. We're against the cult mind. And that cult mind is also held by those who claim to be against cults, that just because they feel a certain way about a certain group or certain people or certain individual, that you should definitely feel that way without exploring for yourself, without studying for yourself, without going through the steps of the intellectual process of your mental and psychological development for yourself. See, the cult mind doesn't believe that anybody can think for themselves. That's why you should accept what they're saying, whether they're anti the cult or pro occult. You should automatically accept what they're saying. So the people against the cults are no different from the people that they claim have the cults. They all have the cult mind. See, black supremacy is where the cult mind ends. It takes a lot of courage to think for yourself, to think newly, to think freely, and to allow others to do so. That takes some courage. That takes some fearlessness. That takes some true open-mindedness. But see, you feel safe in the cult mind because you know everybody thinks like you do or feel like you do They happy when you happy. They sad when you sad. They feel the way you feel about everything. And that's the way they supposed to be according to the cult. So you feel comfortable and safe in the cult mind. Because you can't stand up as an individual with inside of yourself. With who and what you are and how you are. Because you're afraid to stand against any and all if necessary. I'm teaching. There is no definitive truth, because if there was, each individual would have to arrive at that truth on their own within their own time, because they're all not going to wake up at the same time. So if everybody acting like they embrace the same definitive truth at the same time, different walks of life, different age groups, different circumstances, then that's the cult mind. Because if there was a definitive truth, people would have to arrive at it within their own time, within their own space, within their own way. Anything other than that is a cult mind that creates consequences, creates fear and shaming and illusions to force people to accept certain opinions as facts, to accept certain ideas prematurely, just for them to fit in and be accepted and be a part of the group mind. That's the cult mind. The cult mind is a crabs in a bucket mentality, because the human beings can evolve way beyond any group or cult mind establishment that exists on this earth. From society to government to religion to alternative groups, spiritual organizations, the human soul, the human individual can evolve beyond that if left alone. Outside of that scope of fear, that realm of fear, the human being can evolve past that. But see, the cult mind is an extraterrestrial technology, psychological technology, to prevent the human beings from growing to a certain level. So they use the cult mind program to keep us locking each other down and keep each other limited to a certain spectrum of thinking, so that we cannot evolve to become higher and advanced and ascended beings. So the cult mind is a form of technology that higher beings is utilizing to thwart human progress and human evolution. But that's a whole nother video. But King Noble Black Supremacy and KNBS, we're against the cult mind. We don't agree that everyone should agree. That everyone should agree on anything at the same time, in the same place. That human beings are their own individuals. They're their own on their own spiritual journey, on their own path, and then they must wake up on their own and wake up in their own time and in their own energy and frequency. And that no one should accept any truth as being completely evident beyond their conceptualization, beyond their intellectual understanding of the information that is put beyond them. Now, if they wake up with some type of intuitiveness or some type of premonition, or wake up based on some type of paranormal manner, then so be it. But any ideas or thoughts or perceptions that are put out, an individual must awaken to them at their own space, in their own time. No one has to agree with anybody on anything. To think that such thing should exist is a cult mind. That oneness means that, in order to create oneness on this earth, everybody has to be forced to some particular ideological or religious or doctrinal or conscious space. That everyone has to be forced and pressured into that, so that we all can be one and be all on the same page. That's the cult mind. And that's why the world is in the way it is today. Because of the cult mind is the predominant program that is running in society. The cult mind is the matrix. Go along with what is being predominantly pushed by the majority group. Go along with it now, or get ostracized, get penalized, get punished, get attacked now. get shamed now, get dehumanized now, and now people are just choosing. It's a battle of cults. Which cult is it going to be? Not which freedom is it going to be? Which independence is it going to be? Which respect and which reverence is it going to be for others? It's going to be like, which cult am I going to be on? And now it's cult against cult, and it's survival of the fittest cult now that's going on in this country, that's going on in this world right now. And King Noble Black Supremacy is against that. Join my website, www.kingnobleblacksupremacy.com. Donate, don't hate.